NBA Commissioner Adam Silver says the NBA simply did not have the same power as the Justice Department. Is there something Adam Silver is not telling us? Or should we take him at his word? In an in-game interview during a New York Knicks versus Boston Celtics game, Adam Silver spoke publicly for the first time on the scandal involving NBA star Terry Rozier, who was arrested last Thursday in a high-profile gambling scandal. Claims that Terry Rozier was providing insider information to other people. Adam Silver explains how the investigation first started and why did the NBA clear Terry Rozier of any wrongdoing, yet subsequently the Justice Department and the FBI arrests him in an extraordinarily high-profile case that involved the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, giving a press conference. So let's take a look at Adam Silver's interview. Let's break it down. Let's see if what he's saying is a good defense. Is there something he's not telling us?
The NBA was on Amazon Prime for the first time, and mid-game they got an interview with Adam Silver where he spoke about Terry Rozier being arrested for the illegal gambling.
Thanks, Ian. Adam, yesterday, federal indictments were announced involving current player Terry Rozier and current head coach Chauncey Billups. What was your initial reaction, and what has the last 36 hours been like for you?
My initial reaction was I was deeply disturbed. There's nothing more important to the league and its fans than the integrity of the competition. And so I had a fit in my stomach. It was very upsetting.
So Adam Silver says the usual. It was very upsetting to him. He had a pit in his stomach. Obviously, you're the commissioner of the NBA. This is a very, very bad look for the league. The season just started. So he's saying all the right things so far. But let's continue.
Terry Rozier was allowed to keep playing after an NBA investigation ruled that there was no NBA rules violated. What do you make of that decision now amid the FBI's allegations against him?
So again, what the reporter is asking Silver about is back in 2023, there was an investigation of Terry Rozier regarding the same set of facts that he was ultimately indicted for. But the NBA investigation said he did not violate any NBA rules and he was allowed to keep playing. So let's hear what Adam Silver responds.
So what happened was because bets were placed through legalized legal betting companies, they picked up aberrational behavior.
Okay, so if you remember from the indictment, there were a variety of different online betting platforms that were used. And what happened is that Terry Rozier said that the allegations at least are that he told a variety of people, then told other people, then told other people that I'm going to leave the game about 9 minutes in due to an injury. Allegation is that he faked the injury because you can't predict an injury. You can't know the future. So the allegation is that he faked this injury, and therefore, because he only played 9 minutes during the game, if the betting line started at for Terry Rozier, who was averaging 20 points a game, the betting line started approximately at that level that he's going to score 20 points a game, right? So people bet the under because they knew if he's only going to play 9 minutes, then he's probably not going to score 20 points a game. So the betting companies were subsequently doing their own research and probably just, again, how the how the betting platforms picked up on this aberrational behavior. I don't know yet. We don't know that information, but presumably they run kind of audits, when they're looking at the payouts that they gave. And there's also, federal regulations that they have to comply with. So they looked at this game and somehow they picked up that there was some kind of weird activity going on in this game. I guess that a lot of people were betting the under on Terry Rozier, and then he suddenly got injured. Again, how often this happens, how often there's what appears to be aberrational behavior and it's just stuff happens, I don't know. But this is the background. This is the genesis of how the investigation started.
Their game in March of 23. And so that was brought to our attention by the regulators and the betting companies. We then looked into that situation.
So he says the regulators and the betting companies told the NBA. So he says regulators and betting companies. So regulators, he's not saying who are these regulators. Presumably, he's talking about law enforcement, but we're not clear. But the betting companies went to the NBA and said, "Hey, look what's going on. This is really bad for us, and it's going to be bad for you too. You got to look into this."
And we're very transparent about it. And while there was that aberrational betting, we frankly couldn't find anything. Terry at the time cooperated. He gave the league office his phone.
So they looked into it and they couldn't find anything. Okay. So what evidence did they look at? What we do know, Adam Silver is saying when we couldn't find anything, well, what do we know that they looked at in terms of what kind of evidence they're gathering in their investigation? A, they looked at Terry's phone, and B, they interviewed him. Okay. When they interviewed Terry Rozier, did they interview anyone else? If you remember the indictment, there were many, many co-conspirators, and there were many other people in the same indictment of Terry Rozier that was in his circle. So there were various people in Terry Rozier's circle that allegedly Terry Rozier was passing information on to those people. One of them was a childhood friend of his, and then it just kept growing and going from there. So, A, we don't know. Adam Silver is not telling us. Did they interview those other people? We don't know. Do they even know about those other people? Again, we don't know. Adam Silver is not telling us. Put that aside. The next piece of evidence I looked at is Terry Rozier's phone. If you recall in the indictment mentioned things like text messages and digital communications. So were those digital communications that the FBI looked at from Terry Rozier's phone? The NBA also looked at Terry Rozier's phone. Did Terry Rozier delete text messages or WhatsApp messages or other kind of digital media from his phone? Did the NBA have the ability to recover deleted information? There are forensic capabilities. Something that happens in civil litigation all the time. You can have experts look into these kind of digital devices and they'll conduct a forensic analysis and see if there was any information that was deleted and they can recover that. So did the NBA go that far? How far back, again, when the NBA says Terry Rozier gave them his phone, what did they look at? They look at all his text messages for all time. Do they just run a specific search? Again, in regular litigation, when you're doing discovery and they'll ask you for digital communications and they say, okay, well, look at these search terms, plug in 10, 20, 30 different search terms, plug those in because otherwise you could be looking endlessly at thousands and thousands of messages. So was there some kind of search parameters that NBA used? Was there a date frame? What kind of communications did they look at? When they said Terry Rozier gave them his phone, did they go ahead and then do another independent forensic analysis? So again, we don't know what's going on.
We sat down for an interview, and we ultimately concluded that there was insufficient evidence despite that aberrational behavior.
So he says Terry Rozier also sat down for an interview. Was this a friendly interview? Was it a hostile interview? One thing, we don't know. If you're doing a regular litigation, right? If I am suing, let's say I'm suing my John. I was in a car accident with John. John's car hit me, and I say, well, John was texting on his phone while he was driving, and I want to depose John, and I want to take a deposition. A deposition means that a witness sits down also for what's called kind of an interview. And you, as a lawyer, you get to ask them a lot of questions. And it's pretty open-ended. And the idea is just to gather information. So if I'm representing someone who was in a car accident, one thing I might ask this person that I'm suing in a deposition is, okay, were you texting on your phone? Did you ever get a speeding ticket before? Did you have anything to drink before you before you got into your car that day? Have you ever had any kind of traffic related offenses before? Have you ever been involved in an accident before? Those are the kind of questions I would ask. But the key point is it's in front of a court reporter. So there's somebody who's called a court reporter who sits down at these interviews and transcribes everything. So there's a transcript made of the interview. So you can go back and look at it later on in the lawsuit. And the other part is it's a sworn statement. So it's considered that you're giving testimony in court as the same legal impact. So when Adam Silver is saying Terry Rozier sat down for an interview, was there any transcription of that interview? We don't know. Was it a sworn interview? Again, we don't know. So those are some things that I would be curious to have more information on. I'd like to see the transcripts. Again, there might be lawsuits that are coming out and they might be asking these kind of questions, but these are some of the more nuanced information that questions will arise. And at this point, we just don't know. Again, in fairness to Adam Silver, he's giving a 2-minute or a 90-second mid-game interview on live television. He's not going to be getting into all this detail, but at least it's kind of setting the framework. And these are questions that will, at some point, need to be answered one way or the other. But let's go on.
We then work directly with the law enforcement, as they said at the press conference, that the league has been cooperating. And so that was obviously over 2 years ago.
So then Adam Silver is saying, we cooperated with law enforcement. Again, what's not clear is when did law enforcement get involved? If you recall the beginning of the interview, Adam Silver said they were approached by betting companies and by regulators, okay? And then he's saying now we cooperate with law enforcement. If the NBA cleared Terry Rozier, then why did law enforcement get involved to begin with? What was the basis for law enforcement getting involved? Did the NBA say something to law enforcement? Well, maybe. Let's go on.
So the federal government has subpoena power, can threaten to put people in jail, can do all kinds of things that a league office can't do.
So that's a key component. And that happens to be correct. Adam Silver is right about that. The NBA is a private company. They cannot say to Terry Rozier or to any witness that if you don't tell us the truth, we can put you in jail. If the FBI is interviewing somebody and you lie to an FBI officer, that's a whole separate crime. So let's just say the FBI is investigating somebody for embezzlement. You stole money from your company, right? So they're looking to see whether you committed embezzlement. And now they're interviewing you, and now they're asking you, let's just say, did you ever embezzle money from your company? And you say no. Well, now, not only can you be charged with embezzlement, you can also be charged with a separate crime, which is lying to a federal officer, which is obstruction of justice. So the FBI has the power to say, if you don't tell us the truth, we're going to charge you with an additional crime of lying to a federal agent. And the NBA can't do that. They're a private company. Now, if they find out that Terry Rozier lied to them, you could get in trouble still with the league. How are they going to find out? Okay, again, good questions, but there is a bigger stick that the federal government can carry that the league office can't carry. Again, I think the league office still has an enormous amount of weight that Adam Silver is trying to downplay because, again, if you're an active NBA player and it's found out that you lied to the NBA during an investigation, I imagine there's terms in each individual player's NBA contracts and in the collective bargaining agreements that say you cannot lie to the NBA during an investigation, and they can probably get in trouble in other fashion with the NBA. It might be civil, not criminal, but if you're an active NBA player, you don't want to jeopardize your career. So I understand where Adam Silver is coming from, but still, he's trying to do damage control. So let's be clear about that. His second point, he's saying the NBA does not have the power to issue subpoenas. The subpoena is very simple. It's a legal document that's demanding information. So it can be done in a civil context or in the criminal context. In the criminal context, the government sends out what's called a subpoena, It's signed by a federal judge or a state level judge. And it says to this person, you're commanded to either produce documents or give a sworn deposition, sworn testimony at such and such time, such and such place. And that person has to cooperate. So I think what Adam Silver is trying to say is the NBA can certainly interview Terry Rozier, but does the NBA have the power to start interviewing the people in Terry Rozier's orbit? It sounds he's not being crystal clear, but it sounds like he's saying they don't have that same kind of long arm, that same reach that the federal government has to subpoena other people in that orbit of Terry Rozier. So they can go into Terry Rozier, but they can't go into further than Terry Rozier. That's what it sounds like Adam Silver is saying. So hypothesis, it could be what Adam Silver is saying. I'm kind of speculating here. And again, if you disagree, agree, tell me in the comments below. But it seems to me that what he's saying is possibly, well, we concluded that we don't have enough information to say he violated the rules, but we're not entirely comfortable, right? We did whatever we could. So we closed the investigation because there's nothing else that we could do. But maybe something didn't feel quite right. And to cover themselves, perhaps they then took this to law enforcement on their own. And they said to law enforcement, here's what we found, but there's only so much we can do. So law enforcement, you better now carry on the baton, continue this investigation. So let's continue.
We've been working with them since then. And of course, what they announced yesterday was an indictment. So
And he said we've been working with them since then. Again, obviously, Adam Silver wants to say we're cooperating with law enforcement. That's obvious. We've been working with them since then. Since when? He's not clear on what time. Since the fact that law enforcement has more authority than the NBA league office, are they the ones that tip this to law enforcement? Not clear.
2.5 years later, he still hasn't been convicted of anything, in fairness to Terry.
So he hasn't been convicted. Again, a little bit of damage control. He's saying, okay, it was a long investigation, but he hasn't even been convicted yet. So everybody, hold off on judgment, because if it does turn out that Terry Rozier gets acquitted, well, the NBA is not going to look so bad because, hey guys, we did our own investigation and we said he didn't do anything wrong. And now the jury was not even able to convict him. So we're not going to look so bad. So, and also he's an NBA commissioner. He wants to, in a sense, to protect his own players. So he's doing, again, damage control.
Obviously, it doesn't look good, but he's now been put on administrative leave.
So it doesn't look good, and therefore we took appropriate action and put him on an administrative leave.
So, there's a balance here of protecting people's rights and investigating. And as I said, we've been working with the government, and they have extraordinary powers that a legal office doesn't have.
So, again, his main point, the government has powers that we don't have. And it seems to be the crux of his argument. There's a lot that we don't know yet. We're going to continue to follow this. If you got value out of it, please drop a note in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see everybody later.